Hey everyone, welcome to this week's live stream. My name is Paul, I'm the founder of Adopt and Embrace, and over the next couple of weeks and last week, we've been doing a live read of our Teams for Managers book, Adopt and Embrace Microsoft Teams. So this week we're going to focus on part one, which is all about getting to know Microsoft Teams and how you can use that to communicate, collaborate, and coordinate with the technology that's at your fingertips. Now, there's a few things before we get into the read itself. Obviously, if you missed last week's live stream, head over to the Adopt and Embrace YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe while you're there, and you can watch the introductory chapters of the book that we read through last week. We also gave a lot of context around why we wrote the book at the start of that stream as well. So there's lots of good content there that you might have missed out on. This week, we're going to do most of it. Most of it's going to be reading and demoing and showing you some of the stuff that's changed since we wrote the book, some behind-the-scenes conversations around what we're thinking when we wrote those different parts of the book as well. So hopefully there's a lot more that you'll get out of this live stream than just reading through the book by itself. That being said, some of the feedback that we got last week is that quite a few people that were watching the live stream and watching the recording actually really found it great to be able to read along with the physical copy of the book or the book on their Kindle as we went through the storytelling and through the live read of the book itself. So if you don't have a copy of Adopt and Embrace Microsoft Teams, make sure you head over to Amazon and order yourself a copy now on your Kindle or in paperback. If you love audiobooks, I can guarantee you the audio quality on this live stream is nowhere near as good as the Audible version of the book. There's no dogs in the background. There's no planes flying overhead, no one doing their gardening and the lawn mowing in the background like they are today. So if you want to get a perfect quality audio version of this, make sure you head over to Audible. Otherwise, you can put up with the audio quality on this one. With that, what we're going to do, we'll go straight into the content today. As I said, we're looking at basically part one of the book, which is where we start to introduce Microsoft Teams, I guess the technology and the capability that's included in the product. Now, the interesting thing around when we wrote the book, we made this really purposeful decision about what kind of specific features, specific content we put about features into the book, just because Microsoft Teams is evolving so much and changing so much, and so much new capability is coming into the product pretty much every week almost. All the times that you kind of log in and you think, oh, there's a new button or something shifted or some new capability there, which is great. And like in just the last few months, we've had things like breakout rooms appear, at the peak of the pandemic, things like virtual backgrounds and things like that. All this new capability coming into the product. And when you write a book, which is printed on paper in 2019, 2020, it's very difficult to keep up with a lot of that stuff. So we purposely didn't put many screenshots in the book to show that, because we knew that the user interface would update and we knew the user interface would change over time. For those of you that want to dive into a book or some content with lots of screenshots in it, noting that those screenshots will probably go out of date pretty quickly, try the Microsoft Teams for Dummies book that you get on Amazon as well. That kind of goes, lots of screenshots going step by step through that process. What we really wanted to focus on is philosophy of work, philosophy of how to use Microsoft Teams to really take you from just knowing where to press the buttons to actually really getting value out of the product as well. So what we'll do, I'll start just before part one. I've got a little preface here, a little preface for this part of the book anyways, and it's called Before We Begin. As you may have noticed during the introductory chapter, talking about Microsoft Teams and the team you create for your team, it can become quite confusing quickly. To help you differentiate between these commonly used terms in this book, we have purposefully used different capitalization. And I recognize that talking about capitalization on a live stream is not actually all that exciting, but this is a really great tip if you're trying to communicate to your peers or colleagues, or you're running a Teams adoption program in your organization, of how to differentiate between the different teams that we have to deal with when we're talking about Microsoft Teams. So here's a quick guide that'll help you understand what we're talking about. Microsoft Teams, with a capital M, capital T, the software that your IT team has installed onto your work computer or loaded onto your phone or tablet. So whenever we say Microsoft Teams, we're talking about the product itself, the software or the application that's loaded onto your device. When we talk about a team with a capital T, it's a collaboration and coordination space that you can create using Microsoft Teams. So the kind of the naming convention we use is whenever we're talking about a team, so the thing that you create in Microsoft Teams to bring people together, to collaborate on documents, to coordinate your work, etc. Anytime we talk about that, we use a capital T for team there. And last but not least, team with a lowercase t. And that's the group of people that report to you or the team that you're a member of in the real world. So if you're talking about your team, your marketing team, your finance team, your sales team, we use lowercase t to talk about that. So just to recap that, Microsoft Teams with a capital M, capital T, that's the product or the application. Team with a capital T, that's the collaboration space you create within the product. And then team with a lowercase t, that's all about the team that you operate in the real world. We find just that simple differentiation between those three different topics helps avoid a lot of confusion when you start talking about teams, using teams, and creating teams in Microsoft Teams. You get the idea. All right. When in doubt, if a word starts with a capital letter, we are referring to the product or feature of the product. If it starts with a lowercase letter, we're referring to what you are familiar with in the real world. What about desktop versus browser versus mobile? One of the great things about Microsoft Teams is that you can have a similar experience regardless of the device you use. Throughout the book, we will flip-flop between referring to the Microsoft Teams app installed on your PC or Mac and the Microsoft Teams app installed on your phone, iPad, or tablet. We will not mention the browser often, but remember that you can access Microsoft Teams via the Office 365 portal if you ever need to. And for those of you that don't know where the Office 365 portal is, just portal.office.com. If you go to that website address, you can get access to all of your Office 365 applications, including Microsoft Teams, through the browser too. Now that we've mentioned the mobile app, this begs the question, should I install the Microsoft Teams app on my phone? If you already have your work email on your device and plan to put some or all of this book into practice, then adding the Microsoft Teams app to your phone will help you get things done. We are conscious, however, that many people reading this may still want to maintain some separation between work and their non-work lives. Now, just to be clear, we wrote this before the pandemic and before we all went into lockdown and all had to work from home, basically this brute force shift into home. So this is something we're conscious of before the pandemic. I think everyone now is really conscious about this, trying to maintain some kind of separation between, working from your garage like I am today, or from your kitchen table, or from your home office. And your physical workspace being inside your physical non-workspace. It's a really challenging thing to manage. The good thing is with Microsoft Teams, we've got some tools that help us manage that overwhelm of notifications and kind of lock things down in our digital worlds anyways. This is what we talk about in this section of the book. For those worried that installing Microsoft Teams app on their phone may start blurring the boundaries, we recommend you become familiar with the Quiet Hours feature of Microsoft Teams, which will mute all notifications outside of the core hours you set. It's a perfect blend of convenience in your pocket with control for blocking potential distractions from your evenings or weekends with family and friends. Now, we've got a little screenshot. It's one of the only few screenshots we've got in the book, actually, of that there. But what I'll do, I'll actually show you how to set up quiet hours now, because it's something I think is really important to make sure that everyone gets that stuff set up and in the right place. So what I'll do, I'll just switch to my other camera here. Oops, and that screen's gone off, so you can see the green screen in the background. Here we go. Get that back there. I'll just put this in front of the camera now, my phone. So I'm going to go into Microsoft Teams. So here's Microsoft Teams on my Android device. So similar kind of experience on your iPhone as well. Just going to go to Settings on the phone. And then within the settings, I can select my notifications. So I'm going to click on Notifications. And you can see here, there's ways I can manage my notifications for general activities that happen, like chats and replies into messages and things like that. So you can get really fine-grained control over what you get notified for on your phone. So if you haven't done that, I'd recommend you do that. When it comes to blocking notifications and quiet hours that we talked about, trying to maintain that work-life balance outside of hours, just go down to this block notifications bit. During quiet time, we can set daily quiet hours. So you can say, like, my quiet hours start from 7 p.m. and end at 7 a.m. if you wanted to have what I've got here. That means no notifications from Teams at night. When you're having dinner, when you're going to bed, you get up in the morning, all your notifications are turned off. We've also got quiet days here as well, which can mean we don't want to get any notifications on Saturdays or Sundays anytime during the day too. So you've got some pretty fine-grained control here in terms of time of day and day of the week to control when those notifications are coming through. One of my favorite features of the mobile app, to be honest, because the last thing I want is a notification at 10 o'clock at night because someone in a different time zone doing their job, and as you'd expect them to do, tagging you or replying to messages. You don't want those notifications distracting from your day. It puts you in control a lot more of what we've got here as well. All right. So now that you've got the Teams app on your phone and you set up your notifications and you set your quiet hours, let's go into some more of the detail. So part one, getting to know Microsoft Teams. Your IT team has just rolled out Microsoft Teams. If the project team rolling out Microsoft Teams has done a great job, at this stage you should know what Microsoft Teams is and how you could start using it to improve the way you work with your colleagues and direct reports. In the rare case where the project team is only focused on turning the technology on, you might be asking yourself, what is Microsoft Teams? And what is in it for me? In this part of the book, we'll make sure that you have a clear understanding of what Microsoft Teams is. Instead of listing hundreds of features that will overwhelm most people, we have structured this section into 3 chapters. Each chapter is focused on activity that all executives, managers, and team leaders do every day. They communicate, they collaborate, and they coordinate. We will walk through each of these activities and show you how the capability within Microsoft Teams can help you do just that. While you may have used Skype for Business or Link, SharePoint or Planner in the past, we still recommend you read all 3 chapters in this part. This will refresh your knowledge of what is possible and improve your practice in a Microsoft Teams world. When reading the following chapters, note that some of the capability discussed may not be available to you. For example, in many organizations with Microsoft Teams, you will not be able to use it as a replacement for your desk phone with your direct dial-in phone number. This is likely due to decisions made by your technology team with their business stakeholder representatives regarding the role that Microsoft Teams plays in the overall IT architecture of your organization. Or you may be working for the United States government or United States Department of Defense, where features of your Office 365 environment are restricted to meet strict security and compliance standards. As we can't predict how Microsoft Teams has been configured in your organization, we have presented what Microsoft Teams is capable of if everything is turned on. If you see something in the following chapters that you don't see in your Microsoft Teams environment that you feel would help you and your team achieve more, make sure you discuss the possibilities with your management team or Chief Information Officer or IT Manager. Finally, if you want to dive deeper into any of the capabilities of Microsoft Teams that we share in the following chapters, check out the free training that Microsoft provides online at aka.ms/teams-end-user-training. So what I might do, I'll just pause and actually show you what's at that website, aka.ms/Microsoft Teams end-user training. This is what you see. We kind of saw a preview of this when I shared my screen before. So this is Microsoft Teams video training. And this is a great resource. And one of the reasons why we didn't put lots of screenshots in the book is because we knew this resource existed. So we didn't need to continuously maintain the book because Microsoft's basically creating that how to use the tool, which button to press content, and making it available through the Microsoft Teams video training at that address. So there's quite a few videos here to get started with. Introduction to Microsoft Teams, setting up and customizing Teams, starting chats and calls, managing meetings, that kind of thing. So all the things that are probably the first questions that many people would have when they're starting to use the product for the first time. And they know they can do chats, and they know they can upload files, and they know they can do meetings, but they need to know how to press the buttons in the application to actually do that. So this library of videos is a great place to point people to if you want to give them a self-service ability to kind of look at that different content. Now, one word of warning or one point of difference or something to think about with this, if you're rolling out a Teams adoption program within your organization and you're thinking, all right, let's just give these videos to everyone and they can do their self-service training and things like that. What these videos don't do is contextualize this to your organization, to your business processes, to your work practices, how you as a group collaborate, how you as a group want to coordinate your work, et cetera, et cetera. So you really need to layer onto this examples or context that makes it relevant to your organization as well. Otherwise, you'll have lots of people doing chats, which is okay. You might have a very high active usage number, but you're not going to have very many people really driving business value or improving business processes with Microsoft Teams. There's a big difference between the two of those, just using the product and actually using it to transform the way we do things in a business, or improve or accelerate the way we do things in a business. So yeah, word of warning, absolutely use it as a resource, but make sure you're layering on the context for your business on top of that training as well. All right, so with that, let's go on to the next chapter, We got through the kind of preface-y chapters of this part of the live stream anyways. So a different way to communicate. This chapter is all focused on how to communicate individually with, one-on-one or with a small group of people within your organization. Email. It's a de facto standard of office communication for knowledge workers and the lifeblood of commerce and customer service in organizations around the world. It's also the one thing that either overwhelms or controls the workday of almost everyone in your team, your department, and your organization. Email is, one of those things that's always been in the workplace. It feels like, particularly for me, like I've been in the workplace for about 20 years, and email's been at the heart of that from day one for me. And I think it's one of those things that's really difficult to unravel as well, because it's been there for so long. It's like that Lindy effect of, technology being in place for so long. It's going to take a long time to unravel that, but hopefully with Teams we can start to do that. So that's what we're talking about in this chapter. While email has served many people and many organizations well, and will continue to do so into the future, there are aspects of our email culture which get in the way of getting work done. Many people consider whatever is at the top of their inbox as the next item on their to-do list, resulting in their priorities being set by others rather than themselves or their manager. Others religiously check their inbox every 15 minutes so they don't miss important content, but in the process get distracted by the noise created by emails that are not relevant to them, the task at hand, or their role. In fact, email has become so entrenched in many organizations, mostly before making the move to Office 365, that organizations would send people home if the email server went down. And I remember this happening to me back in the mid to late 2000s, before an employer that I worked for had gone to the cloud. Email went down. We couldn't do our jobs for half the day. We just went home, which was good, I guess, half a day off. But it just shows you the importance that email has played in organizations for so long. Email, just like the love letters your grandparents wrote to each other, or messages in a bottle thrown into the water to float around the world, is a way to communicate with someone with a longer feedback loop, when you don't need a response straight away. You craft your thoughts, put them into a digital format, add a subject that, ideally, helps the reader understand the purpose of the message, add your intended recipient or recipients, and hit send. You then switch to the next task on your to-do list or the next email to reply to until you receive a response. Despite email being a tool for longer feedback loops, we have started to use it when we need a shorter feedback loop as well, where we expect a response in real time or as close as possible. As pressure has increased for us to be more agile, more responsive, to achieve and exceed our service level expectations, or simply get on top of things, email has remained the catch-all communication tool we use to try and do it all. The result? Our inboxes are constantly overflowing. We need to consistently monitor them to respond to the short feedback loop communications coming in, and we are consistently drawn away from doing the work we need to do. If you spend most of your day getting to inbox zero, but not getting your work done, are overwhelmed by the 50 to 200 plus new emails you get every day, or simply want to add some nuance to how you communicate with your team, Microsoft Teams provides capability, if used well, to help you feel more in control, support your team to achieve more, and to help you achieve your KPIs. In this chapter, let's explore how the tools you have at your fingertips within Microsoft Teams, things like presence, chat messages, audio and video calling, simple meetings and screen sharing, can augment or replace your reliance on email. And that's what we're really going to focus on for this session today, is really thinking about how we could use Microsoft Teams to take some of that overwhelming email out of our inbox in Outlook or Gmail or wherever it is, and into a space where it's a little bit more structured, I guess. Gives us the ability to have a bit more control over the richness or the fidelity of the communication that we have, the ability to control when people can engage with us, all these kinds of things just add a bit more. It may look like it's adding a bit of complexity, but actually puts you a lot more control of the way that you communicate and the way that you communicate with others and others communicate with you. So let's talk about getting a quick response using chat and presence. And actually, before I go into this, I should mention here a big shout out to Daryl Webster, who used to work for us at Adopt and Embrace, that wrote quite a lot of the content in these chapters as well. So thanks, Daryl, for putting these chapters together as one of the co-authors of the book. All right, getting a quick response, chat and presence. Situation: you need a quick response from a colleague to help you solve a problem that is in front of you right now. To reach out to a team member or colleague for advice to navigate a challenge ahead of you, the first thing we're going to do is to initiate a chat with them. If this is the first time you've tried to connect with this person via chat in Microsoft Teams, here's some instructions on how to do that. And I'm going to read out, not going to read out the instructions of how to do it because I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So what we'll do, go over the shoulder again, bring that camera up. All right, so here we go. We've got Microsoft Teams. I've just got a demonstration environment here where I can show you some of these things. And again, the situation here is we have a colleague we just need to get a quick response from. We're not going to do it via email like we used to do because we're trying to reduce the overwhelm in our inbox and others. It's kind of almost a near real-time interaction we're looking for here. So we're going to use chat in Microsoft Teams to do that. So the chat button down this left-hand rail here, you can see that it's the second one from the top, just below the activity button. I'm going to click on chat. And you can see here that here's a history of all the different chats that we've had with our colleagues, with the individual chats or group chats down the side there. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new chat. So I'm just going to click on the little box there with the pen on it, click new chat. And then what I can then do is click here to type in the name of the person that I want to chat with. So if this works, I don't actually just realize the name of my keyboard connected to this because it's going to be a really horrible demo because I can't even type in a name and the on-screen keyboard won't come up in the demo environment. Oh my goodness. Things we should practice and rehearse before we do live streams. Anyways, so what we do here is enter the name of the person into the chat. And then once we've added the name, then they would appear on the two-line. Then we can just send the message down the bottom here by typing in a chat message. And then when we're ready to hit send, there's a little arrow there, paper plane. At the bottom there, you click on to actually send the message to the person on the side. And their responses will come back through this little feed here. So if I go to one of these other chats here, you can kind of see here's a chat that Pradeep had sent to me. Here's a message. You're killing it in editorial design. Thanks for your hard work, Megan. Megan's the user I'm logged in as. And you can see from here that there's just Pradeep in the chat. And I can come back here and type in a new message and respond to Pradeep as well. See if there's any other ones here. Kind of here's a conversation that's been occurring with Patty as well. So you can see these conversations, these one-on-one quick chats. There's no good morning, Paul. How are you? Good morning, Megan. How are you? Thank you. Kind regards. Cheers. Anything like that. It's really designed for those quick, real-time, one-on-one messages that you have going backwards and forwards. One thing that you'll look at here is that we can actually do a few things here as well. So if there's a message that you're constantly needing to refer to, or email chat, not an email chain, oh my goodness, a chat or a group chat you need to refer to often, you can actually pin that chat there using that pin button to the top of the list. So it's always there at the top of the list if you needed to refer to that. So that's great if you have like a group chat set up with maybe some of the managers of your team where you have like a back channel set up so you can kind of talk about things in meetings, between meetings, and share information with each other just as you're kind of chatting through the day. Using that pinning there to pin that to the top is a great way to set that up as well. All right. And I'll also bring the screen back there again to create the group chats because I kind of mentioned them without talking about it. Just add more names to the two-line of the people that you want to send the chat to as well. All right. If you chatted with this person recently, then simply go to your recent chat list. You'll notice, unlike Skype for Business or Link previously, Microsoft Teams has persistent chat. This means that you can always see the history of chats, requests, advice you have shared with that individual or small group. There is less need to keep an email trail as a backup, as you can share history of the chat with others as they join the conversation. One other consideration, especially if you need a quick response, is to understand whether that person is available and in a position to assist. You can use the presence or availability indicators in Microsoft Teams to understand if that person is able to help. Simply look at the picture or icon of the person you wish to communicate with in the chat window or the recent chat list. The presence indicator is a little circle with the colors meaning the following. Green is available. Yellow with clock hands means away. Red is busy or in a meeting. Dark red with a white horizontal line is do not disturb or currently presenting their screen to others. Purple with an arrow is out of the office, or a grey circle with the X in the middle of it is presence cannot be determined. So if I go back to that screen before, you'll see that there's presence indicators on their screen, but all of them are that last one I just mentioned, the grey circle with an X in the middle of it. Presence cannot be determined. Because we're in a little demonstration environment and a lot of these users aren't actually set up or configured, you can see why we can't see the presence coming through. But that's where you'd look, is just beside the little image or picture of a person there. In your organization, it might have the headshot of that individual because you've got the photos of people set up in Active Directory or in the systems in the background to give them that view there as well. But if I go across here to the top right, which hopefully you can see on the screen, let me just move that out of the way just to confirm it. Oh, it's just out of the screen there. So I'm going to see if I can move that there. You can see there's me, there's Megan as logged in person. You can see there's a little green circle beside it. That means that I'm available. I'm actively on my machine. Now, if I wanted to change that presence, I'll just click on my face there. You can see I've got this. Let me get that in the right spot. You can see a little available there. I click on that arrow there, and there's a way I can set these manually if I want to. Now, Teams will automatically set the presence for you based on your calendar if you've got it set up properly with Exchange and everything like that. So if you're in a meeting, it'll show you as busy. If you're presenting your screen in PowerPoint, it'll automatically set it to Do Not Disturb. So there's really smarts built into it to manage your presence throughout the day. But if you just want to create some space so you can focus time, I guess, to focus on some stuff, you can either hit Do Not Disturb, which will stop all the message notifications coming through and calls and other bits and pieces, or you can appear away. Which is one of my favorite ones, where you can actively work on your machine and get stuff done, but you appear away. So people don't think you're there, ready and available at their beck and call to respond to messages straight away. So ways you can set your presence there. Now, this is a new one, this duration bit that's come in here. This has actually been added since we wrote the book. So what we can do now is we're going to set the duration of that status. So if I say appear away, and I go back there, and I go back to my, there I go, duration. Let me go this. I'm going to set that, sorry, appear away, and I want it to be for the next 2 hours, and hit done. And what that does is basically says that's going to be my status for the next 2 hours, and after that 2 hours is finished, it's going to go back to automatically setting the presence based on my activity on the device, whether I'm in meetings or other things like that. So again, if you want to put more control over what perception people have of your availability, to control inbound requests that are coming to you or anything like that, then you can use that presence indicator to do that really well. The one thing I would recommend though is if you are regularly engaging with people on Teams, or regularly looking at things in Teams, is just be conscious of that presence, because if someone is Do Not Disturb, if someone's in a meeting, you're not going to get a response very quickly. So it may not be the best way to communicate with that person at the time. All right, let's get back into the book. So ultimately, at its core, the chat experience within Microsoft Teams is quite like chat experiences that you have in your personal life, using apps like WhatsApp, iMessage, or Messenger, or Signal, which is something we'd put in this book now if we wrote it today. Like those tools, you can use a built-in camera or image gallery on your phone or tablet to share photos or screenshots with others. By simply taking a photo of a situation, asset, or event and posting it in the chat to one of your team, you can eliminate a lot of miscommunication and solve problems quickly. When taking a photo within the Microsoft Teams app on your phone, you can quickly use your finger to draw or mark up the image before you send it. This is perfect for adding arrows, question marks, or other visual guides you need for communicating meaning in your message. So there's one of the other few screenshots we have in the book. It doesn't actually come out all that well when you print it in monochrome or black and white here. But what I might do, I might show you this one, because this one's a really interesting one that a few people have used. And one of the common use cases for photos in Teams and sending them in chats is in healthcare, right? So a lot of doctors, probably against policies of the organizations they work for, if I'm completely transparent about it, using mobile phones to get advice from other doctors or their peers in terms of how to treat a wound, how to treat an injury, that kind of thing. And a lot of them are using those tools like Messenger or WhatsApp or others to keep this connection, this community of practice going between all the different practitioners. One of the risks that come with that, though, is that those photos that you're taking end up in the photo gallery of your phone. So there's really an information security, a privacy, compliance issue there with people taking photos and just using these chat tools to do that. So what we can do I'll just find someone to do that. So Jeff will do. So what we can do with the mobile app, when we're kind of sending these messages, is we have the built-in ability to take photos, obviously, with the app. So you've got the little camera button there. I can press the camera. I'm going to hit allow to do that. I'm going to take a photo. And this basically brings up the Teams app. You can see here, this is you see this exciting view of my garage where I'm filming today, all the rubbish we've got off this camera here. But if I was to take a photo, again, I've got the ability to control, if I go back to there, the ability to say it's a photo, video, document, whiteboard. So all that smart stuff that comes with Office Lens, we can do that all through there. But what I'm going to do is just have it as a photo. I'm going to take a photo of this switch here, which you can't see on camera at the moment. And basically, see there, I've got a photo of our Atom Mini switch, which I use for switching between the different cameras that we're using today. Now, what we can do now we've hit here is we can actually mark up this image before we send it into the chat. So you see a little arrow there. Click on the arrow. I'm going to click the red pen. I'm just going to draw some arrows on this picture. So make sure source 4 is selected. Sorry, I think the lighting is not all that great, so hopefully I can get that into a better spot for you. There you go. So basically, I go green there. Going to make sure that one's kind of got an arrow there for that one as well. So you can mark up the image before you hit send. You hit done. You send it into the to the person you're communicating with, and that message goes to them, obviously with your marked up changes on it. Now the key thing there, obviously, that photo, the image you just captured, and that photo doesn't end up in the camera roll on your phone. It's only within Teams itself. So there's no, I guess, digital trail of important corporate information and images or things like that on people's personal devices that they might have as well. It's pretty interesting tool to use in terms of sharing information, marking up information quickly with others that you're working with. Right. I think I kind of explained this in the blurb, but I'll read it through it anyways. So one of the built-in security features of Microsoft Teams means that if you're taking images using the camera within the Microsoft Teams app, the image is not stored locally on the phone or tablet. This ensures potentially sensitive customer, patient, or student information is not left unprotected on a team member's personal device. Finally, sometimes you may need to send a message or image to a colleague, but also to tell them where you are. The Microsoft Teams app gives you the ability to use the built-in GPS on your phone to pin your location on a map and send it in the chat window. This is perfect if you have team members out in the field and if they need to know their location for safety or other reasons. So again, this last one here, I might just quickly show this. I apologize for kind of switching backwards and forwards, but this one here is a feature that we've had quite a few customers use over time. So if I again go to the over-shoulder camera, hopefully this will come through a bit better. All right, so here we go. So again, the chat is there. I've got with Jeff going. If I press the little plus sign there just to the side to open up the different options, there's a button here which is location. I hit location, just allow the permissions for that. And then you can see where I live, which is on the public record, I guess. So that's okay. Now I've got a little ad blocker on here that doesn't show up maps on the phone when I'm on the Wi-Fi. So if I just take that off the Wi-Fi for a second, I'll try that again. Get the right, so it should show the map this time, hopefully, if it does it. There we go. So that's because my location. I can hit share location, and that drops that into the chat with the address and the map of where you are as well. So that basically is a great way for first-line workers or workers that are out in the field that need to give like a proof of life check-in to say, hey, I've made it to this customer's location. I made it to a house that I might be doing a house visit to. You can use a GPS check-in capability in Teams to have that constant situational awareness of where your team are around the world. So that's a really cool feature, going beyond just the chat capability within the application as well. All right, so let's go back into the book. So adding richness to the conversation, audio and video. Here's a situation. You want to hear the voice or see the body language of the person on the other end of the line. While a lot of meaning, sorry, let me start that again. While a lot of meaning can be communicated through text, your tone of voice and body language can enhance communication and improve comprehension. There are some corporate myths about how much communication relies on body language or tone of voice. The most famous is Albert Mehrabian. I'm going to completely screw up the pronunciation. I think when I read the audiobook for this, it took me about 8 times to get this right. Mehrabian's 7% rule. In 1971, he suggested that the credibility of a message is based on body language to a degree of 55%, on tone of voice, 38%, and the remaining 7% is the content of the message. The original study only looked at single words like maybe and not flowing conversations or speeches. Well thought out, well-structured text has far greater impact. Just think of any book, article, website, or report you've read recently. So if a message can be still communicated well via text, why do we need to add richness to our conversation using audio or video? It's really a matter of trust. Studies have demonstrated that well-structured communication with video turned on can achieve the same levels of trust between participants as face-to-face communication, albeit a little bit more slowly. And I think during the pandemic, we've seen this really start to emerge, and people kind of really recognize this is the case. Over the last 12 months, we've had new starters join organizations that haven't had the opportunity to meet their teams, but been able to use video and tools like Microsoft Teams and others to help establish that trust with new starters and build those connections, build those relationships with each other. And so we can see that, yes, it might have been a little bit slower than if they were able to be on site in an office face-to-face and we could have a morning tea together on their first day to kind of start building those relationships. But we're still able to build almost similar trusting relationships through the use of video with each other as well, which I think is great to see the kind of practically happening in the world as well. All right. This is particularly important if you're managing or working with distributed teams where you may not have the opportunity to meet face-to-face every week, every month, or every year. At Adopt and Embrace, we live and breathe this every day. As a distributed team, we almost never talk to each other on the phone. Instead, we use video calls within Microsoft Teams to ensure we have face-to-face conversations with each other, irrespective of geography. For example, John, one of our adoption specialists in our team, lives in Perth. And Perth actually, coincidentally, is in a lockdown this week as well from a COVID, so he's even more isolated this week. Perth has a population of just over 2 million people and is situated on the west coast of Australia. It is one of the most isolated major cities in the world. The closest city with a population over 100,000 people is Adelaide, which is over 2,100 kilometres or 1,305 miles away. John normally, before we had COVID, meets with us in person once or twice a year. We haven't seen John in person for 14 months, I think, at this stage, thanks to border closures and COVID and things like that. Normally we see him once or twice a year, though, in person. However, at least 3 or 4 times a week, he's on a video call with us, either individually or with the team. That isolation completely disappears when you use video to communicate, so much so that when we do have the opportunity to meet in person, it feels exactly the same as talking to someone you sit next to in the office every day. Using video helps us not only to remain connected as a distributed team, but also to access skills and expertise from around the world. Adding audio or video to your text-based chat is simple. Look up the top right-hand corner of the chat window you have open and click on the phone if you want to have an audio call, or the camera if you want to have a video call. Don't worry too much if you click on the wrong button. You can switch between the two by turning your camera off and on during the conversation. Many people try video for the first time in a high-pressure situation like a meeting. Take the pressure off yourself and try a video call with someone in your team, away from the eyes of your peers at the boardroom or meeting table. Set yourself up for success, especially in an open plan office, with a USB headset to ensure the audio sounds great. So what I might do is just, oh no, this machine's gone to sleep. Here we go, try this again. I'm going to go back over the shoulder and just show you how you can actually engage in those different video calls and audio calls. And I know many of you will have done this already if you've been using Teams over the last little while, but just want to make sure we cover it from scratch for everyone. So again, we're in a meeting here with Pradeep. So Pradeep's the person I'm having a chat with here. All we need to do is just go up to the top right-hand corner here, and you can see the connection error on my virtual machine. Ignore that box there as I point to this bit here. And it's going to reconnect in a second. Here we go. So we've got the little boxes in the top right-hand corner here. So the audio call we could kick off and the video call there. Now in my demo environment, the video call is grayed out because we don't have access to the camera within the virtual machine that I'm using here. But they're the two buttons we want to press to kick off an audio or video call. Whenever you do that, it's just going to default to the usual or the default webcam or audio device that you're using. So if you have a USB headset plugged in, it should pick up that device and just automatically use it. If you have your webcam set up to a surface like I've got here, it should pick up the front-facing camera at the top of the device by default. But if you have multiple cameras, like I have here, using the Blackmagic Design Atom Mini, or you might have a Logitech external webcam or things like that, the first time you do this, you might need just to make sure you select the camera. That's going to be the one that pops up fairly regularly. And if you're like me, you might have Snap Camera installed on your device still. So every now and then it'll default to the Snap Camera when I unplug webcams and things like that. So just be conscious of the camera that it's selecting when you go into the video calls. The good news is you get a preview of what you see before you join the call. So it makes it easier to make sure you're not making a fool of yourself by having the wrong camera or showing the the garbage in your office or your garage like I've got here as well. All right, so let's go to the next page. Before we move on, as we are talking about video calling or video conferencing, it is worth talking about two elephants in the room. First, why would we use video conferencing in Microsoft Teams when we have a perfectly good video conferencing system in our boardroom or meeting room that no one really uses today? And second, most of our team are uncomfortable or just don't like using video conferencing as they're worried that they may look funny, strange, different on camera, or just don't like the look of their own face. Now, again, we wrote both of these bullet points before the pandemic. And I think there's interesting things we can talk about that have shifted since we wrote this here. So first of all, plenty of organizations have video conferencing equipment in meeting rooms that is not being used today because no one can get into the office. So that's a really clear use case for using a tool like Microsoft Teams to communicate from whatever device that you have in front of you, your laptop, your phone, your iPad, that kind of thing. Now, interestingly, I think for this is that there's been a big shift in user behavior because we've had to have this brute force shift to distributed work, and we're using video conferencing capabilities on our devices a lot more frequently. It's going to be interesting over the next 18, 24 months, 36 months as people start to come back into offices where these meeting room systems exist and the role that those meeting room systems will actually play in the future. Like, will we still all go back into the boardroom in the head office to engage in a video call with all the remote offices? Or will we all just sit at our desk and engage through the video, through our headset and the camera, wherever we are seated in that office or at home or wherever? Now, I think we're going to shift to this hybrid world where people might do 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, or people have a bit more flexibility in terms of how they work, which means we can't rely on everyone being in that meeting room on that day when that room is booked. In the future. So I think there's going to be this really interesting world where people will still use that infrastructure, don't get me wrong, but there's going to be a lot more people coming in individually into those calls via the Teams app on whatever device they're using. Right, so let's start with the first one. In most larger businesses, you will have some video conferencing equipment almost always in your established meeting rooms. The challenge for many organizations is that these meeting rooms are not only for video conferences, but also for normal non-video based meetings as well. This results in rooms being booked up and unavailable when you need to use video conferencing equipment. I can remember one customer I went to a few years ago, and that was their biggest issue. They had installed all this video conferencing gear, but no one could use it because the meeting rooms are just being used for in-person meetings all the time, and you could never actually, book a room with the right equipment in the first place. So, kind of stranded assets in meeting rooms all around the office. The beauty of a video call in Microsoft Teams is that you don't need to book a room at your end and a room at the other end. You can use the webcam built into your laptop, your phone, your Surface, or your iPad, and have a more engaging conversation with others from the comfort of your desk, office, or home. For those in organizations that are thinking of upgrading their meeting rooms or rolling out more video conferencing equipment in the future, there are room-based video conferencing solutions built to work seamlessly with Microsoft Teams, a win-win. And we've seen quite a lot of those emerging over the last 12 months as well. I think organizations, as part of their return to work strategies, particularly here in Australia, but also overseas as well, we're seeing a lot of them upgrading their meeting room equipment to support people, being more people to be able to come in as individual participants from remote sites or at home, but also still having the ability for people in the office to engage in those conversations as well. And here's one of those capabilities that was being rolled out to quite a lot of people at the moment, which I'll talk about in this next page. This is especially true if you use some of the meeting room capabilities like Microsoft Teams Rooms content camera. This technology, which we can only describe as magic, recognizes the physical whiteboard in your room and converts what you're drawing on the board into digital ink, even that green whiteboard marker that never seems to really work. In the process, the person in front of the whiteboard becomes transparent, allowing you to see the entire whiteboard in the meeting. Now, I can't demonstrate it, but there's the kind of screenshot we have in the book there of content camera in action. So someone's writing on a whiteboard in a physical meeting room in an office somewhere, and then you have people on the other end of the call actually being able to see the ink that they're doing through their body, kind of transparently, which is pretty cool. It's kind of digital ink on top of physical ink. It's really snazzy. Now, you do need some special gear to get that, but it's actually quite affordable in the scheme of office equipment or video conferencing equipment you'd have in an office. So if you're interested in that kind of capability, I'd just talk to your local Microsoft partner or Microsoft, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction of what to get. Even without the content camera, you can take a photo of your physical whiteboard and upload it into your meeting, switching from physical ink to digital ink in a matter of seconds. To cut a long story short, having video conferencing capability at your fingertips and not locked away in a room that is always booked improves your workforce's ability to access the technology increase its usage, and ultimately increase the value of video conferencing in your organization. Now onto the second elephant in the room. What about people who hate having their camera turned on? This is a tougher nut to crack, as it may be up there with some of the greatest fears that many people have: public speaking, swimming with sharks, having my webcam turned on. Despite the fact that we see Sharon, Kevin, Amanda, or Daniel's face every day when we talk to them in the office, the act of turning on a webcam so others can see me can bring in a lot of anxiety and a lot of excuses. My hair is a mess today. I'm working from home and I don't want to look and I want to look professional. No one needs to see me. I have a face for radio. Look, they all may be valid excuses. Yes, Daniel, you do have a face for radio. However, there are ways to slowly convince your colleagues that turning their video camera on is more beneficial not only for them, but also for the team. The normal pattern of success we see is for one brave person to make the first move. If you're reading this book right now, I've volunteered you to be that brave person. Next time you get on a call, turn it into a video call or add your camera to the audio call that you're having. Don't ask the other person to turn the camera on. Start your conversation as if it were a regular call. One of two things will happen. The person on the other end may turn video on as well. Perfect. A habit is starting to be formed. If not, don't worry. Wait until your next call and turn your camera on. This time, halfway through the call, casually say, "Hey, I can't see you. Is your webcam turned on?" That will cause the other person on the other end to either apologize and turn their camera on quickly, or start rolling out an excuse about hair, makeup, unprofessional backgrounds, kids are at home, internet is bad, I'm still in my pajamas. Don't pressure them into turning video on unless they are comfortable. That comfort will come as you engage with them more and more with your video turned on. Now, one quick point I want to add there. Again, we wrote that before COVID. We've seen, I guess, lots of people experiencing distributed work or remote work for the first time and starting to recognize the value of video in terms of remaining engaged and connected with their peers. So whether you're in a public service department, whether you're in education, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in retail, whatever the industry you're in, because we're having to work at distance, we've been missing that connection with others. So quite a lot of people have kind of made the choice themselves now to basically be default video on in meetings, which I think is good to see. What I would say though is don't try and force the issue with people. There are some people that genuinely having anxiety or have challenges in terms of wanting to present themselves via video. That shouldn't necessarily impact their ability to do work, but what it may impact is the ability to build stronger connections with that individual, or that individual to build stronger connections with you. The best you can do in those situations, don't force it. If you're comfortable having your camera on, still leave your camera on. And if they don't want to have their camera on, that's fine too. Let's focus on getting the business outcome or whatever it is at the time. I think that shared experience of solving a problem or solving or achieving something will help build that trust. It may just take a little bit longer than not having that video on as well. It can be easy to convince others to turn the video on if you agree as a group that it's a good idea prior to getting on calls. Suggest that it would be great as a team that we all agree that we're going to turn our video on, in which in turn will help us reduce our hour-long commute to the office each week for a face-to-face discussion. Or if we chat using video, it'll stop us from having to find time to go into the meeting room up on level 7. This will make it easier to start having these richer digital conversations. Finally, if all else fails, you can use technology to help some of those excuses go away. Well, we don't have the ability for Microsoft Teams to do our hair, although the way that the augmented reality is going, picking your haircut for a business video call must be just around the corner. And Snap Camera has definitely helped us do haircuts and filters on top of things on our video calls, for those that have played with it. Where was I up to? There are ways to create a video experience that is more inclusive and accessible. The background blur feature of Microsoft Teams video call is perfect to use when you're working from home and you want to hide the pile of ironing you have sitting in the corner of your office. True story. If anyone's been on a video call with me, there's always a pile of laundry in the background, and that's why I always have background blur on when I'm in the home office. Or the mess that your 9-year-old kids have made on the floor, also a true story. They're now 10, but there's always a mess on the floor of the home office too. So background blur is another technology that I can only describe as magic. Others may call it real-time video pattern recognition though. That identifies where your face and shoulders are in the frame of the video, then applies a blur to any video that is in the background. With background blur turned on, the people you are communicating with can easily see you, but the rest of your home office or the busyness of the cafe is just, well, a blur. Based on the same technology, Microsoft has added the capability not only to blur, but also entirely replace the background of your video call. Now, this sounded really magical 14, 15 months ago when we wrote this. Now everyone's familiar with background replacement. If you've been in a meeting anytime in the last 6 months, 12 months, you would have seen background replacement in action, and you've probably done it yourself. But it was really amazing 2 years ago. It just shows you how quickly this technology moves as well. Now you can work from the comfort of your home office, but make it look like you're at HQ or working from the beach. Unlike the weather person on the evening news, you don't need a green screen to use this feature. Just select the background you want, and Microsoft Teams will do the rest. For example, here's what it looks like when you go from home office to your actual office with just a few clicks. And here's our favorite model, Lorian, Microsoft MVP, kind of modeling the two different backgrounds there in the book too. One of my favorite examples of someone using this technology to solve both problems we have just discussed at the same time as our Microsoft Teams model in the last two photos, Lorian Stramp. Lorian is a Microsoft Teams or a Microsoft 365 consultant from Australia who regularly uses background replacement feature to encourage others to turn on their video camera. He has even created a background image that simply says, "Turn your camera on." So again, this one here, when he's trying to encourage his colleagues or encourage his peers to engage in video, turn on video on their video calls, and basically just created his own custom background there, which said, "Turn your camera on," to kind of reinforce it. Again, people don't want to turn their camera on. It's not the end of the world. It might just slow down that building process that we talked about in the book throughout here. So don't get too concerned about it. All right, providing some context, file and screen sharing. Situation, you want to show someone that what you are talking about. A lot of the time when you're communicating directly with your peers, it may be about a file, or you may want to share your screen with them so they can see what you see. With Microsoft Teams, it is easy to add this context to your conversation. First, you need to stop emailing files to each other. You know what I'm talking about. Final report.docx, final report v2.docx, final report v2 pwedits.docx, final report v2 final.docx. Instead of emailing different versions of the same file backwards and forwards, resulting in additional overhead required to consolidate all the versions into your final document, share the file in your chat using Microsoft Teams. The file sharing capability in Microsoft Teams chat uses OneDrive for Business, part of your organization's Office 365 subscription, to easily and securely share the file with your peer. To share the file in your chat, simply click on the paperclip button in the chat window, then browse for your file on OneDrive or upload the file from your computer. Teams will then organize this to be sent to whomever you're working with. Note that this is a link to the document stored in your OneDrive, not a copy of the document, as it would be if you emailed the attachment to someone. As the Word document, Excel spreadsheet, or PowerPoint presentation is being stored from OneDrive, it means that both of you can work on the same document at the same time, something that Microsoft calls co-authoring. Using co-authoring capability means that you can see each other's changes in real time, reducing the need to send files back and forth. No more final report v2 final approved.docx file names. The added benefit of working on the document, spreadsheet, or presentation stored in OneDrive is that you have an automatic version history as well, just in case you make a big mistake and need to go back. This is one of the things a lot of people don't know about working on documents in Teams, is that you have that version history automatically just by having a document within a team or within the chat within Teams, thanks to SharePoint and OneDrive in the background. And I think that the limit of the number of versions that are stored is just, in the last year or two, gone from 50 to 500. So there's a heap of versions that you can go back through time to see of that particular document as you've worked on it or created it over time. What it'll do is it'll basically declare a version every 30 minutes or so when you're working on it, and when you do a major change like opening or closing the document as well. So if it's a really actively worked on document, you can go through those versions pretty quickly. If it's something that's kind of a document that lives over time, you can actually go back through the last year or two worth of changes through that version history as well. It's pretty cool. We will talk more about working with documents, spreadsheets, and presentations as a team in the next chapter, where we explore collaboration in more detail. Being able to quickly show someone what is on your screen to help everyone get on the same page. Let me start that sentence again. Oh my goodness. Being able to quickly show someone what is on your screen can help everyone get on the same page. Whether it is to show one of the support people in your IT team the error message you are getting when you try to raise a purchase order in your finance system, or to walk someone through a document or presentation one-on-one, screen sharing can help reduce a misunderstanding or miscommunication and help you achieve the result you desire more quickly. To share your screen, you need to be in an audio or video call. Click on the sharing tray icon in the lower middle of your screen, and this will display a few things. First, you can choose choose to share your screen in its entirety. If you have multiple monitors, you can select which monitor you want to share. If, however, you have multiple applications open, maybe you don't want the person on the other end to see everything on your screen. In sharing tray, you can select a specific application. If you select that application, the person on the other end will only see that window. Any other window you have on your desktop will be invisible to them. This means that you don't need to close the 47 windows you have open before you share your screen, or be worried about about random chat messages or notifications popping up during your conversation. Now, screen sharing is a really interesting one. I won't show it to you now because I don't have anyone to demo it with. But there's lots of manual processes in your business that might rely on people drawing things or showing things physically on printed paper or things like that, where screen sharing can really help. My favorite one is from a retail customer that we have that has lots of regional kiosks in service stations or petrol stations around Australia. And they used to have a manual process of faxing planograms, like how they lay out all the stuff on the different shelves. The manual process of faxing that backwards and forwards between these different locations to agree on the final layout of where the product would sit on the shelves. So instead of having that backwards and forwards asynchronous process, which just takes forever, take weeks to kind of agree on a plan, they now find a time, get together on Teams, share their screen, and they can talk through the changes to the planogram in real time and kind of agree to the layout of the store using screen sharing. So it's a really simple application of screen sharing beyond just showing someone what's on your screen to help them navigate through an application that can actually really improve a business process as well. All right, need to escalate something? If you're in a conversation and need to find another expert or escalate your discussion to a manager, you can simply access your organization chart within your chat. Simply click on the organization tab to quickly see who the person you're talking to reports to and who reports to them. Communicating at scale across your organization. Here's a situation. We have our all hands meetings over the next 2 weeks, which means I need to travel to every location. As an executive or manager, you may be accountable for communicating at scale. Traditionally, this may be done through an all-staff email. You might have a CEO connection group in Yammer where you provide updates to the workforce. Or it could be through in-person events, your quarterly update or sales kickoff, or departmental roadshow. If you're part of a large organization, it may mean getting on a plane at 5 a.m. and traveling across the country or across the world to meet regularly with your teams on the ground. Does anyone remember when we traveled for work? Like, I haven't been on a work trip since March last year, so it's almost 11 months since I've been on a work trip. So you can see how quickly all this has all changed since we wrote this book. We're not suggesting that visiting sites is a bad idea. Rather, you can increase your visibility at those sites and in turn enable yourself to have a far more productive conversation while on site by broadcasting your presentation to everyone at once. By live streaming one event to every staff member, you don't have to deliver the same presentation 26 times, and you get to spend more time on site having a deeper, more meaningful impact. The presentation can be viewed at people's desks or in a meeting room, and it can be recorded, transcribed, and translated as well in close to real time. Broadcasting a presentation to your department, division, or organization is easy with the live events capability in Microsoft Teams. While it takes a little bit more than just turning on our webcam and inviting 5,000 people to attend, it is relatively straightforward to set up without any intervention from your IT team. We won't bore you with all the details now. However, Microsoft has put together a great online guide for you or one of your team that can work through at aka.ms/live-events. Use this guidance to quickly and easily broadcast your next event or all hands presentation and avoid the airport at 5 a.m. We've seen some awesome use of live events over the past 9 to 12 months with the pandemic. We've personally worked with organizations to help run formal compliance meetings, whether it's annual general meetings or creditors meetings or things like that, where you need to invite an audience from across a country or across the world into a meeting that they can't travel at the moment. We've seen an organization live broadcast yoga sessions that they used to have in their office, and they're using live events to broadcast those yoga sessions to their employees across the country, so they can still participate in those yoga sessions from home. So there's lots of use cases for live events, particularly these days now where we don't have everyone all in the same location. So if you haven't tried live events or had a look at live events and you need to communicate it's kind of at scale, like a broadcast one-to-many presentation as opposed to interactive meeting kind of content, have a look at live events. I think it's a really great tool that basically, think back 10 or 15 years ago, we would pay an absolute bucket load of money to have that capability to live stream an annual general meeting or something like that. So some really great capability at your fingertips. Almost finished this chapter, and then we might wrap up the live stream after this chapter. So moving away from my traditional desk phone. As moving away from your traditional desk phone requires the most effort from your IT team to set up, we have left it for last. Microsoft Teams can be a replacement for your traditional phone system as well as everything else. Instead of using desk phone or other system as your soft phone, Microsoft Teams can be configured with your normal landline or direct dial-in number. Anywhere you have an internet connection, you can use Microsoft Teams to both make and receive calls. Many of our customers are planning to move to Microsoft Teams for their phone system to save money and provide more flexibility to their workforce. In this chapter, we've explored some of the fundamental communication capabilities you have at your fingertips in Microsoft Teams. By leveraging presence, chat, audio, video, file sharing, screen sharing, and live events, you can communicate effectively with individuals, small groups, or your entire organization. As a manager, these capabilities can help you better connect with people every day. Effective teamwork takes more than just communication, though. In the next chapter, we will shift our focus to collaboration, the purposeful pursuit of a shared goal by a group of individuals. We will explore how Microsoft Teams can help you improve your situational awareness of your team, help them focus their efforts in the right direction, and ultimately work together to achieve more. Now, at the end of each chapter, when we write it, we have a little checklist that kind of actions you can take to kind of work through this. So here's a checklist for the end of the different way to communicate chapter. So first one, if you haven't done it already, and I'm assuming a lot of you have, send your first chat message to a colleague. Second one is turn your chat into a video call and have a face-to-face discussion. Again, thanks to COVID, I think we've all had a go at that one so far. Third one here is add a third person to the discussion. So you can add that third person to that chat, turn it into a group chat. Not as many people may have tried that yet. So again, if you wanted to have that group chat, that back channel communication going on across your group, a group chat's a great way to do that. So have a go at that. Try using the sharing your screen function and walk the person on the other end through a document, report, or presentation. Now, I know this last one here you probably haven't done. Try sending your location in a chat message from the Teams app on your mobile phone, like I did previously in the demonstration, just to show how you can do those check-ins to make sure people are safe. Check-in, see if people are at the office or work from home that day, all those kinds of things. You can kind of build that into there. And then finally, visit teamsbook.info, which is the online webpage for the book itself. So go to teamsbook.info, click on resources, and there's links to some video content that shows you how to do some of this stuff, which links back to the end user resources that we showed to earlier in the call today. So that's that. Look, I had really high expectations of reading another 2 chapters today, but we've already gone for an hour with those demos and things like that. So I might wrap it up today for that. So next time we do a live stream, we're going to focus on this next chapter, a different way to collaborate. This is where we go into actually when we've set up our team, setting up a team and different channels and tabs and all those kinds of things to create a space where a team can come together and work on a project, work on an initiative, or just keep connected and have situational awareness of what's going on, work with files, that true team collaboration. So different from communication, which is just engaging with individuals one-on-one or being able to send a message to each other. We're really talking about how people work together in that space. So next week, we'll focus on a different way to collaborate. Again, thank you so much for joining the session live. If you've joined live, for those of you watching the recording, thanks so much for participating. Again, if you are interested in learning more about Microsoft Teams and listening to me ramble on about the rest of the book, make sure you subscribe to the Adopt and Embrace YouTube channel. Like and subscribe, as my children keep telling me to tell everyone on the live streams. If you haven't got a copy of the book, head over to teamsbook.info. We've got a Shopify store there. We can buy a paperback copy of the book, but we've also got links to all the online marketplaces around the world where you can get the book or the digital versions as well. So it doesn't matter if you've got an iPad, if you read with a Kobo reader, if you have a Kindle, if you want to get an audiobook and Audible, all the links are there on teamsbook.info. And the resources page is there as well if you want to get any of the resources ahead of time as we go through the rest of the live read too. So with that, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to our next live stream. Hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world, and catch you soon. Cheers.